The Cuddle, a Soul Shed story. Welcome to the Soul Shed. Here, simple stories open ancient doors. I am Eden Lynn, light bearer, keeper of stories, watcher of the inner flame. For those who feel lost, walk with me. Your soul already knows the way. The night was still. Not the kind of stillness that soothes you. The kind that hums behind the ribs, heavy and slow, like the air before rain. He sat at the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, head bowed low. The light from the street lamp outside spilled across the wall in long, tired lines. Everything felt tired. The air, the silence, even his heartbeat. He'd spent the day trying to be useful again, helping, calling, fixing, the usual ritual of someone who cared too much. He never helped to be thanked. He helped because he didn't know how not to. But lately, even that had started to feel like pouring himself into hands that were never ready to hold him. Now, with the world quiet and his phone face down, he realized the ache wasn't from being unloved. It was from loving with nowhere to put it. What he wanted wasn't complicated. He didn't want explanations or closure or grand confessions. He just wanted a cuddle. Not a romantic one, not a desperate one. Just that rare, sacred kind, where someone holds you, and for a moment the world doesn't ask you to be anything. He let the thought sit there, simple and pure. Then he closed his eyes. He pictured himself outside, standing in the open, the air cool against his face, his breath forming small clouds that rose and vanished like thoughts. In that quiet space, he imagined warmth approaching. Not a person, not exactly, but a presence, something ancient and kind. When it reached him, it didn't say a word. It simply wrapped itself around him, gentle, steady, like the arms of a memory. And for the first time in a long time, he exhaled properly. Not the half-breaths he'd been surviving on, but a full, deep release, as if the world had been waiting for him to just let go. He melted into the invisible embrace, into the weightlessness of finally being still. He could almost hear it then, that voice that wasn't quite a voice, more a feeling that spoke directly into his chest. You don't have to keep being strong. You've carried enough. Tears came quietly, not as grief but as relief. He hadn't realized how long he'd been holding his breath, holding his heart, holding everything together. He didn't move, didn't rush the feeling. He just let the world stop for a little while, until the only thing left was breath, in and out, and the faint sense that something unseen had its hand on his back, saying, "You're safe now." When he finally opened his eyes, the room hadn't changed, but something in him had. The shadows looked softer, the air lighter, the silence less lonely. He sat there for a few minutes, watching the slow dance of light and shadow across the wall. The ache hadn't vanished, but it no longer felt like an enemy, just a part of the story. He realized then that the cuddle he'd been searching for wasn't out there somewhere in someone else's arms. It was already here, in the air, in the quiet, in the small mercy of simply allowing himself to rest. He whispered to the stillness, barely loud enough to hear himself, greater than, "Thank you for the cuddle." Then he stood, stretched, and walked to the window. Outside, dawn had begun to tease the horizon, faint streaks of silver threading through the night. The world hadn't ended. It had simply begun again. He took a deep breath, letting the cold morning air fill his lungs, clean and sharp. When he exhaled, he smiled softly. Not because everything was fixed, but because, for the first time in a long while, he didn't need it to be. Thank you for listening to The Soul Shed. Until next time, take care of your light. And when it feels dim, come back. We'll be here. Because the soul remembers what the mind forgets.